Removing foil number 2. One of the things I did on this, I have a drill with a wire brush on it. I just lightly went over, just lightly, and not bearing down on it, just to knock off some of the shine, or knock off some of the patina, because I'm basically will be melting off and removing the copper foil along this edge. Now you notice I've got it lifted up off the table with some scrap wood, because basically this is a flat piece. Okay, and you want the solder to drip off. Well, it has to be able to drip off somewhere, somehow. Okay, because I'm removing the foil from the edge, which I don't want to rip it off entirely. Okay, now I got these tweezers, which are very handy to have. This piece I do have to replace, but I'm not a big fan of busting the glass out, as I've mentioned many times before. But I don't want to bust the glass out to clean, and then clean out the hole, and then replace the glass, trying to salvage as much as possible. Okay, so, but I have to clean up this edge. I have to get the solder and the copper foil off. Now see, heat it and pull it off gently. Just don't go yanking it off, because I know some people, well, just yank it all off and then clean and then copper foil it again. Well, I'd like to avoid that if at all possible. The first step is to get off the copper foil, okay, that's on there. And whoever had made this had a hard time soldering. And of course, yes, I'm burning through some of the patina, and it's going to collect on your tip. You see this? Okay, that's another reason why I wind up having a solid ceremonial block to clean my tip. Because some of this stuff, you get your tip dirty and nasty enough, a sponge isn't going to take this stuff off. Okay, there's a lot of dirt on there, and that's what the block helps to do, is to get all that crud off, okay, that a sponge doesn't take off. Doing repairs requires this. Okay, I've got it to where this end's cool enough to be able to work with. And of course, yeah, I will go back and melt the rest of the solder off of the copper foil that I'm removing here. And I will also go back and clean up all of these drips. But for me, it's a hell of a lot easier to do that than it is to rip the foil off completely and then have to go back and refoil. I will have to do up here. Okay. See that? See that? And, you know, when you do repairs, this is what you have to do. It's a necessary evil, I guess you could say. Sometimes you have to have a little bit of good solder on there to help melt, almost like a flux. Even though I did brush some flux on here lightly, okay, sometimes you have to have some molten solder to lay on top of the solid solder to get it to melt. You know, that's part of the technique of doing a repair. You know, sometimes, especially when you're doing the Chinese shades, or the Chinese lamps, or the Chinese panels, whatever they made their solder with, it might even be, you know, the stuff they use may even be, you know, lead-free, God only knows. You know, they're not telling that. It doesn't come on packages that you know, buy in the lamp listing what the ingredients are other than it may be leaded glass. See? Okay. So you have to sometimes, you have to have a ball on your tip of molten solder to put on top of the Chinese solder so that it melts off. So that it melts and lets go. You know, I know a lot of people don't necessarily like to work on the Chinese things. I don't blame you. You know, there's solder on there I can get off and save and salvage. Okay. Just like there's solder on here I'm going to salvage. And I save all my little bits, and I've made a couple of videos about, you know, recasting solder, how to recast it into bars or rods or sticks or whatever you want to call it. And one of the reasons I do that, okay, one of the reasons I do that because, and I know some people just say, well, you know, just pick it up and use it that way. Well, maybe some of y'all haven't experienced the joy of carrying solder across a piece of work and have it drip off your tip and land on your work and then have a heat crack. So it's worth it to me to avoid things like that. I'd rather not have to repair it if at all possible. But then again, that's just me, I know. See, now this entire piece came off. Okay? Can we see this? No, we can't. So I didn't rip that off. That was part of the damage incurred when the lady brought it in. So I will salvage the solder that's on there. Okay. And I will also be soaking off the solder that's here so I can get this piece out. Okay. That's what the tweezers help with, because by the time you've heated this thing up, this glass is hot. Okay. A little more. You're not bearing down on it. Remember, you're not bearing down. You just lightly go over it. That's all I'm doing, is lightly going over it. Yeah, whoever made this had a hell of a time with their soldering. It's kind of lumpy and bumpy. Okay. This is called soaking. I'm getting the solder hot enough because it's going to flow through. Okay, you don't want to just rip the thing out. See? See? I can clean that out. See? Let the iron do the work. Okay? Let the iron do the work of heating the solder to get the copper foil off, and then have a nice clean hole, which is what I'm doing. I will have to refoil that. That's okay. That's not so bad, as opposed to having to re-copper foil the entire hole. You know, that's the thing about doing repairs. You don't want to create extra work for yourself, though I see a lot of folks seem to do that. Salvaging the solder that's on there. That'll go in the little solder bin. So that is how we get copper foil off of pieces. And I still have to do this, and I still have to do this, and then I'll have an edge, and I can put another border on there, salvage some of this to make the border and the corners like I had detailed in another video. So thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.